Qinglan High School Student Code. Boys' bangs must not cover the eyebrows. Girls' hair must not extend past the shoulders. Violators will die. Inspection countdown, 30 seconds. He was in the middle of morning self-study when the school's PA system suddenly blurted out that announcement. The voice sounded odd, like a synthetic, computer-generated human voice. Everyone thought it was some class's students sneaking into the broadcast room to pull a prank. A burst of laughter. Suddenly, the girl sitting in front of me convulsed violently. The next second, her head exploded, blood mixed with brain matter, splattering across my face. That thick, metallic stench flooded into my throat. I was utterly stunned, my body frozen and unmoving. What exactly just happened? I hadn't even recovered my wits. Explosions erupted one after another, unleashing a tide of panic. Screams and wails. Those grating sounds made me feel a bit dizzy. Not even 15 seconds. Nearly half the people in the classroom were dead. The white walls were streaked with blood. Headless corpses lay strewn in a chaotic heap across the floor. I felt my breathing grow labored. Out of fear, my body began to tremble as well. But the explosion still hadn't ended. A curly-haired male classmate screamed. He shoved past the people beside him and ran for the classroom door. The moment the door opened, his head exploded. Like petals unfurling and withering, blood stained the walls and floor. Wait! It seemed those who blew up had all violated the rule just announced over the broadcast. If your hair exceeded the specified limit, you would die. I touched the long hair hanging over my shoulders and sank into a deep despair. Death had never been so close to me before. The will to survive snapped me instantly back to clarity. A girl's hair must not extend past her shoulders. I've already broken a rule. I'm about to die. Just then, my deskmate Sophia handed me a hair tie. Hurry and tie it up. I didn't hesitate. I took the hair tie at once and gathered my long hair into a high bun. As the countdown ended, the explosions finally stopped. At the last moment, I kept my life. This inspection is concluded. Thank you all for your cooperation. Current death toll, 628. The voice in the broadcast reported it. Neither hurried nor slow. In just 30 seconds, over 600 people had died. That's the equivalent of a quarter of the entire student body. Almost half the students in our class were gone. Those who survived, besides the few whose hair already met the standard, included a handful of girls and me. We were the ones who had tied our hair up at the last second and narrowly escaped. Is it a terrorist attack? Class monitor Ryan, counting heads, said with a deathly pale face. I glanced at the classroom windows. They were all intact and shut. The only way to make a person's head explode, aside from long-range sniping, there doesn't seem to be any other method to achieve it. I guess it might be related to the rule from just now. Sophia wiped the blood from my face, her expression tight with anxiety. Although the classroom had already turned into a scene of human purgatory, she was still relatively calm. For safety's sake, the few of us girls with longer hair all chose to cut off the excess with scissors. Under Ryan's lead, we fled the classroom in a panic. We had originally planned to go to the office to find a teacher, but to our surprise, every office was already empty. The corridors were packed with students. They cried and screamed, some collapsing to the ground as if their souls had been ripped away. Having witnessed that horrific scene moments ago, how many of them could still keep their wits? In the discipline office, we found several mobile phones. I intended to call the police, but all signals were jammed. I couldn't get a call out at all. As I passed through the corridor, I saw a dense crowd surging toward the school gates. The main gate wasn't closed. In the blink of an eye, over 100 people fled the school. Qinglan High School Student Code. During school hours, all going-out behaviors are prohibited. Violators will die. After a brief crackle of electricity, a new rule sounded over the broadcast. Those who had run out the school gates. Explosions one after another. This time it wasn't just the head, but the whole body. They died before they even had time to scream. The ground by the school gate was littered with scattered flesh, stopping everyone who had tried to flee in their tracks. But still, quite a few people were forcibly shoved out. They died on the spot. This round of inspections ends here. Thank you to all students for your cooperation. Current death toll, 1,477 students. A light, lilting melody played as the broadcast reported the latest death toll. So far, nearly half the students had died. A shadow of death hung over the entire school. No one dared to take another step outside. They witnessed the consequences of breaking the rules. Many people were so scared they wet themselves. Immediately after, the broadcast reminded them again. All students must return to their classrooms in an orderly manner within 10 minutes, or else it's a dead end. When we followed the class monitor back through the press of bodies, of the more than 20 who had gone out, only 8 returned. Outside, it was already chaos. There was also a stampede on the stairwell. When the countdown ended, the broadcast reported the results this time. This inspection is hereby concluded. Thank you all for your cooperation. Current death toll, 1,941. The news hit like a bolt from the blue. In just 20 minutes, only about 500 people remained in the school. And those who hadn't made it back to their classrooms in time, or a student who ran into the wrong classroom, also lost their precious life. Everyone backed away. Some crouched in the corners. Others lay under the desks. A female classmate had already snapped, battering her head against the wall with brutal force. If Ryan and the others hadn't stopped her, she probably would have died. Those still alive hadn't even had a chance to catch their breath. Music played again over the broadcast, and that terrifying synthetic voice began once more. The formal rules game segment is about to begin. To maintain a campus environment and build a harmonious and beautiful school, students must strictly abide by the following rules. At every 2-hour mark on the hour, a game and its rules will be released. Anyone who breaks the rules will be killed immediately. Leaving your classroom without permission is forbidden. Those who follow all the rules and survive until the end of the school day may leave the campus safely. As the music ended, the broadcast fell silent. The corpses and the bloodstains in the classroom turned into black smoke and slowly dissipated. At that moment, we finally understood. What had happened could not have been caused by humans, but by some strange force that defied the laws of science. It was just after 9 in the morning. In other words, before school ends at 7:30 tonight, we will face 5 rounds of rule challenges. According to the few rules that were released earlier, no one dared leave the classroom. We could only stay here and wait as the minutes and seconds ticked by. How it all began and why it happened, no one knew. But the blood-soaked reality had already awakened everyone who was still alive. If you don't follow the rules, you will die. Death could have been avoided. Those rules on the broadcast were, after all, just part of the school regulations. If everyone had followed them from the start, maybe not so many would have died. Unfortunately, people find it very hard to stay rational when gripped by extreme panic. Qinglan High School's rules consist of 27 articles in total. Merely enforcing 2 of them killed over 1,000 people. What if they were all thrown out at once? I'm afraid the number of people who can survive will be even smaller. There was one detail in the earlier broadcast that caught my attention. It mentioned a game related to the rules. And the rules, unsurprisingly, were intertwined with the school regulations in countless ways. Just as the broadcast said, the game will only last until the end of classes. So, at most we have to face 5 rounds of the game. Could it be? I murmured to myself under my breath, unable to help the self-talk. Sophia patted my shoulder, her expression still grave. Wendy, what are you thinking about? I cleared my throat, then walked toward the podium. He grabbed a piece of chalk and wrote 5 big characters on it. Morality, intelligence, physique, aesthetics, and labor. I think, since the rules all relate to us students, the games that follow are very likely to be of the same nature. The classmates were all drawn in by my words and turned to look. A school is a place for teaching and nurturing people. And the 5 points I mentioned are also the goals toward which human social education tends. Perhaps the game will also be related to these factors. Just as I was about to continue discussing with everyone, a melodious tune began to play. Amen, Shin, a grapevine, Anin, a green shoots, just sprouting the snail carries that heavy shell, step by step. A sizzling electric buzz cut the music off abruptly. I held my breath, not daring to move an inch. A familiar voice from the broadcast slowly slid into my ears. Strengthen and improve aesthetic education in schools for the new era, and build an education system that cultivates moral, intellectual, physical, aesthetic, and labor development in a comprehensive way. Educate and train talent for the nation, laying the foundation for the children's happy lives. Next, we will begin the first round of the game. To cultivate students' work ethic and vocational skills, all students must ensure their classrooms are clean and tidy within the allotted time. If the assessment standards are not met, violators will die. The same familiar phrasing again. Today alone I've heard that one word, die, several times already. But what the standards are, the rules don't mention a single word. Just as everyone was puzzled, the fluorescent light on the ceiling cast a yellow glow. Class 3-2's cleanliness does not meet standards. Please clean up promptly. The announcement reminded us that our class had a hygiene problem. Hurry! Everyone move quickly! Ryan shouted, and everyone broke into a cold sweat. That's right, it wasn't just the desks and chairs in the classroom that were untidy. There was also a lot of visible trash on the floor, and there was plenty of dust that needed to be cleaned. 2-hour countdown begins now. The hands on the clock spun rapidly. We couldn't afford to dawdle either. Under Ryan's directions, the 8 of us had clearly defined roles. Arrange all the desks and chairs. Clear away the trash and dust, and even wipe the windows. This round's rules aren't actually difficult. With the 2-hour limit, we used only half of the time to finish the cleaning. Class 3-2 in the third year has met the hygiene standards. Thank you for your hard work, students. Hearing the announcement over the loudspeaker, we all breathed a sigh of relief. This round was almost insultingly easy. After the hustle, Sophia and I were sprawled over our desks, sweat beading on our brows. If we can complete it smoothly, it means we can keep our lives for the time being. The previously oppressive, suffocating atmosphere had also relaxed a little. In the time that followed, we gradually heard pass alerts from other classes on this floor. Great! Finally no more deaths. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I felt a sting at the tip of my nose as well. Current number of classes that have passed, 48. Survivors, 562. Attention students. This round of the game will only reserve 30 class passing slots. If the number exceeds that, half of the classes will be randomly eliminated. Please cooperate. The broadcast blared suddenly. The rules that were issued sent a chill through me. This round of the game actually has a cap on the number of people, but 48 classes had already completed the task, which exceeds the limit of 18. If they carry out a random purge, it would mean 282 people would die. What does it mean? Could it be that in this round, no matter what, half of the students must be killed? Classmates, break time has arrived. You may now leave your classroom and go stretch your legs. The broadcast kept playing light, cheerful music, but I felt as if I'd fallen into an ice cavern. Looks like we're in big trouble. Ryan's face was as dark as night as he looked toward the hallway. After that pointed announcement over the loudspeaker, it wasn't just us. Others from the other classes also understood the hidden meaning. Listening to the footsteps outside the classroom, everyone's hearts rose into their throats. This was plainly designed to make us persecute one another, to go and ruin the cleanliness of the other classes, to reduce the number of survivors. No, this is harming people. We can't do this. I shot to my feet, trying to stop the other restless classmates. Wendy, at a time like this, don't act like saint. It's either they die or we do. Stop dithering. A male classmate grabbed the trash can from the desk and bolted for the door. The others began accusing me as well. Only Sophia spoke up in my defense. There must be another way. Let's not panic yet. The time we have left is already running out. The atmosphere in the classroom fell into a tense anxiety. Just then, the window glass was smashed. Bang! Shards scattered all over the floor. The broadcast also issued a warning. Hygiene standards for Senior 3, Class 2 are currently not up to par. Please clean up promptly. Before we could even move, students from other classes had already begun their invasion. Not even a minute had passed. The number of cleared classes dropped from 48 to 37. Ryan led several sturdy boys rushing out to confront the vandals. The rest of us hurriedly tidied up. Class 3-2 of senior year has met the hygiene standard. Thank you for your hard work, students. Finally managed to gather those fragments. A whole pile of trash was thrown back in. Outside the hallway, the boys fought desperately, driving out those who had lost their minds. Sophia and I, and a few other girls. We had to stay constantly on guard, preventing students from other classes from barging in and sabotaging things. And so we kept hovering around the pass line. Time ticked away, minute by minute, until the very last moment. We barely reached the passing mark. Current number of classes that have cleared, 26. Survivors, 562. The broadcast reported the final situation on schedule. All of that in less than an hour. 18 classes were disqualified from advancing, and the students from those failed classes lost their right to survive. Amid the unceasing sound of explosions, the miserable howls never ceased for even a moment. Outside the corridor, corpses lay everywhere. The stinging smell of blood drifted in through the broken windows. This sweep ends here. Thank you to all students for your cooperation. Current death toll, 2,045. The broadcast kept airing. In the chaos, just now, another 104 people have been wiped out. But compared to half the students being dead, this outcome seemed easier for people to accept. After the recent chaos, everyone was already exhausted. Facing the next round of the game, they had all lost the strength to resist. Yet the rules gave no one a moment to catch their breath. What it wanted was to provoke the dark side of human nature, to make everyone abandon morality in order to survive, to cultivate students' scientific and cultural knowledge and skills and develop intellectual education. All classes are requested to, within the stipulated time, complete the questions we have assigned. If you answer incorrectly or fail to answer within the allotted time, the violator dies. All students, please return to your respective classrooms. The game will officially begin in 2 minutes. In a daze, that life-sending broadcast sounded once more. Upon hearing the announcement, one student screamed outright, "No, I want to go home." Before we could react, he had already dashed out of the classroom. Ryan was about to chase after him to stop him when one of the man's feet had already stepped out. Bang! In the blink of an eye, his body burst apart, a spray of blood fog filling the air. It turned into a puddle of blood and water, evenly splattered at the classroom doorway. Like the corpses before it, it soon dissipated into nothing. They had witnessed too much death. Most of the remaining people had grown numb. Their minds bore various degrees of trauma. Before the lethal rule-based game, we had no right to refuse. As the 2-minute countdown ended, dense lines of text also appeared out of nowhere on the blackboard. Students, thank you for your hard work. To reward you, and based on the current number of students in each class, we have prepared a corresponding number of exquisite little cakes. These are just ordinary little cakes, absolutely non-toxic and harmless. Each of you must ensure you can take exactly one. Do not take more or less. The next second, a metal tray appeared on the podium. Neatly arranged on it were 7 cupcakes, each a different flavor. The person who eats the first cupcake and the person who eats the last cupcake will be guaranteed not to die. The person who eats the cake in second place and the one who eats it second to last will die with absolute certainty. The remaining cake eaters have a 50% chance of survival. If they eat at the same time, the timing will be measured to an accuracy of 1/10,000th of a second. If the first person has already eaten and someone among the remaining students eats too much or skips eating, then everyone will die. Soon, all the rules were written out in detail on the blackboard. The broadcast also began a countdown. Within 5 minutes, everyone needed to make sure that each person received a piece of cake. And in the remaining 5 minutes, they had to eat them in order, one after another. This is insane, absolutely insane. Sophia's voice trembled. Her body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. The rule on the blackboard had been crystal clear. Once the game began, of the 7 of us left in the class, at least 2 would die. And the fate of the 3 in the middle rested entirely on luck. In that instant, everyone fixed their greedy eyes on the cake on the podium. If Ryan hadn't stepped in, things would have descended into chaos and a free-for-all. The first person to take a bite would be guaranteed to survive. No one could resist that kind of temptation. As for whether it would really kill them, no one doubted its authenticity anymore. What kind of test is this? It's just pure luck. A male classmate shouted loudly. Please, I'm begging you. I really don't want to die. Let me be the first to eat, please. On the other side, a female classmate dropped to her knees and begged everyone desperately. But no one here wanted to die. Among all the rules, only being the first to eat the cake was the safest course of action. Moreover, the cake must be ensured that everyone gets one before any subsequent order of eating can be assigned. Who can guarantee that someone won't eat the cake first to save themselves? Looking at the rules on the blackboard, I suddenly thought of something. Then I hurried up. I hadn't expected Ryan to be wary of me too. He spread his arms to block me. Wendy, what are you trying to do? It was the first time I'd seen that expression on his face. Suspicion, caution, and a touch of hostility. I shook my head. Nothing. I just feel that there's something odd about the question. Sophia came over and laid a hand on my shoulder. Wendy, did you notice something? I sighed. Actually, I hadn't found anything particularly important. It was just that the rules on that blackboard, which looked reasonable at a glance, kept revealing inconsistencies at every turn. This round tests the student's intelligence. But a death game about dividing a cake came down to nothing but luck. Excluding the 4 who were guaranteed to die or guaranteed to live, the remaining 3 could only rely on a 50% chance to survive. That being the case, everyone would only want to be the first to eat the cake, because the order after that couldn't be determined. Moreover, if anyone leaves a piece uneaten, everyone will die. This is a test of our humanity. Just like the previous round, to survive, you must strip others of the right to live. Soon, the cake will have to be in everyone's hands. The moment it was in someone's hands, someone would inevitably be unable to contain themselves. They would scramble to eat it. You can't let any of it drop. I muttered to myself, turning the words over and over in my mind. Suddenly, a bold idea popped into my head. I've got a way. At that, everyone turned to me, wearing puzzled, anxious expressions. What nonsense are you spouting now? Yeah, do you seriously think you can keep all of us alive? The students talked over one another, yet their eyes never left the cake on the podium. Afraid someone might make the first move. The last round of the game wasn't supposed to kill anyone. As I spoke, I picked up a piece of chalk and wrote the number 30 on the blackboard. What do you mean? Ryan looked over, his eyes flickering. The game rules fixed the total number of classes, but they never said each class had to be made up of the original students, and I looked up at the classroom loudspeaker. The rules never said the game has to kill people, only that breaking the rules will kill you. If in the last round everyone had coordinated properly and simply distributed the total number of people at random among the 30 classes, everyone could have survived. After hearing my analysis, everyone was enlightened. That's right. If everyone could come to understand that, there would be no need for mutual slaughter. The reason people die is simply a lack of communication and trust. So, what's your solution exactly? Sophia's expression turned grave, and her breathing gradually slowed. I pointed to the cake on the podium. The rules only specified the consequences after distribution, and that missing or overeating will lead to everyone's death. So if none of us eat, then no one will die. The rules were indeed cunning, constantly baiting everyone into trying to be the first to eat the cake. After all, once someone eats, everyone else is put on the defensive. Eating it might kill you. Not eating it will certainly kill you. We all just need to follow the rules. 1 cake per person, wait for the countdown to end. Saying that, I stepped around Ryan and picked up the tray from the podium. I handed a cake to each person. Those are just your guesses. There's no actual basis. Why should we believe you? After taking the cake, someone challenged me. I smiled faintly and clenched the cake tightly in my hand. If you don't believe me, feel free to eat, but I'll say this up front. If anyone eats, I'll throw my own cake away. In an instant, everyone's faces went deathly pale. After all, the rule was clear. If any food was missed, everyone would die. After my threat, everyone clutched their cake, afraid to make any rash move. Wendy, I believe you. Sophia clutched the cake tightly, her eyes fixed on the loudspeaker. As the countdown ended, my heart rose into my throat. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. This round of the game is over. Current survivors, 214. We guessed right. But in this round of the game, more than half the players died. In the face of death, no one could remain entirely calm. Everyone wanted to avoid dying and began to grab frantically. That ended up cutting the total number of people by 50% in a single go. Only 2 rounds of the game, and there were just over 200 people left. I can't imagine how many will make it out alive in the end. Only 2 rounds of the game, and there were just over 200 people left. I can't imagine how many will make it out alive in the end. Were those who managed to survive the previous round, either because they, like us, had found a loophole in the rules, or because they had clung to life by sheer luck. After a brief rest, the 3rd round of the game began. To cultivate students' health knowledge and skills, and to strengthen physical fitness, all classes are requested to assemble on the playground in 20 minutes. Following the announcement, we quickly left the classroom and headed for the playground. Because the number of people had been drastically reduced, the hallway had long since lost its initial crowding. Although the original corpses had disappeared, the smell of blood lingered and refused to dissipate. It was terrifying and nauseating. When everyone had gathered on the playground, the broadcast began to announce the rules for this round of the game. All participants must form 10 vertical columns, with no more than 25 people per column. Teams may be freely assembled. There are no restrictions. Individuals may choose their position within a team freely. There are no restrictions. 3 consecutive sets of rules. I couldn't tell from them what game was about to be played. The instructions just now were to have the little more than 200 remaining students divide into 10 groups. Team formation time, 30 minutes. The formal game details will be announced later. With that, the announcement ended. The burly boys quickly banded together. Even the 2 from my class immediately chose to defect. Nobody here was a fool, since this was a game tied to physical ability. 10 teams, just enough to be arranged into 5 opposing pairs. It looks like this round of the game intends to eliminate half the people again, before any specific rules were even announced, for teams already had their numbers set. As expected, they were all boys. The smaller, scrawnier boys had to make do with forming their own groups. Even so, they were unwilling to let any girls join their teams. This is so unfair. Sophia sighed and leaned against my shoulder. Yeah, it was only for a little while. There were only 3 of us left in our class. Don't be so defeatist. How do you know the next event will definitely be tug of war? At that moment, Ryan suddenly stepped forward and spoke. I was a little surprised. I had thought that, as a boy, he would be about ready to abandon us and go find someone else. I edged closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. Class monitor, did you notice the trick too? He rubbed his chin, a faint, almost imperceptible smile at the corner of his mouth. Actually, from the patterns in the earlier rounds you can tell, these games, however dangerous, are definitely meant to be fair. Ryan analyzed as he spoke while counting the number of people in each team. At present, out of the 10 teams, 4 have exactly reached the maximum number. As a result, the other teams have far fewer people. If the game truly is tug of war, that would be decidedly unfair. But for now, I can't think of anything more. Team formation time ticked away second by second. We could only pick the team with the fewest people. Even adding 3 more brought us to just 12. Not even half the size of the other teams. Except for Ryan and a scrawny, bespectacled boy. The rest were all girls. Many of them were quite popular at school. Striking faces, slender figures. Yet now they were being looked down on by those boys. After the 10 teams finished assembling, the time allotted for us to prepare finally came to an end. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. No one dared utter a word. Everyone was afraid of missing a single word of what was being broadcast. Sizzle, crackle. All teams, please enter the track in groups in sequence and maintain formation. We will now conduct the standard 800-meter fitness test. Time limit, 5 minutes. The voice cut off abruptly. Are you kidding? After all that, it's just an 800-meter run. Ha ha, I won't even need 2 minutes. Hearing that there were only 2 rules, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. And the broadcast didn't announce any other rules. Ryan and I looked at each other. The third round of the game is just a simple 800 meters, and the time limit is 5 minutes. Under normal circumstances, anyone could finish it. If that's the case, then what was the point of putting us into teams before? In the midst of my confusion, a sharp metallic sound suddenly rang out. I realized that my feet had at some point been locked in metal shackles. These special shackles were also connected to the 2 girls in front of and behind me. What is this? In the row ahead, several people shouted loudly. The other teams also let out the same cries. Everyone realized this was a team race. If someone in the team stumbled or lost their rhythm, everyone would suffer for it. Bang! With an unexpected crack of a starting pistol, the game was forced to begin. Ryan and Sophia stood in the front row of the line, and I was second to last. Because of the shackles on our ankles, we simply couldn't keep in step. As for those groups with even more people, they were without a doubt doomed. At the same time, the enormous noise coming from behind caught my attention. A few massive steamrollers rolled closely behind us. They weren't moving fast, but the sense of oppression they brought was overwhelming. If the pace slowed, one person would drag down the whole team. Not even a minute had passed. A fully kit team of 25 made a mistake. They were only focused on accelerating, paying no heed to the group's rhythm. A student at the back stumbled, and the fall quickly set off a chain reaction. One by one, those people were run over by the pursuing steamrollers and turned into minced flesh. Those who fell could only watch helplessly as they were mercilessly crushed, starting from their legs. Shrill, agonized screams, some from those who had died a second before, others from those who were about to die in the next second. Having more people actually turned out to be a deadly flaw. My team, by contrast, benefited from having the fewest people. Even as the steamroller chased from behind, we could barely keep our footing. But our speed was clearly insufficient. Even if we finished the 800 meters, the time would still exceed 5 minutes. In the end, it would still be a dead end. Thinking that, I hurriedly called out to the people ahead. Everyone place your hands on the shoulders of the person in front. Press your ankles together. We can't run. We have to hop. After hearing my words, Ryan immediately took command in the front row. Everyone moved to the beat of the music coming from the loudspeaker. We kept our bodies as close together as possible and ran toward the finish line at top speed. There were fewer of us, so the exercise was much easier for our team than for the others. And almost everyone in the line was a girl. There wasn't much difference in height or weight among them. Using this method, it also happened to prevent their pace from getting wildly out of sync. Soon, we surged to the very front of the line. When the other teams saw our method, they began to rush to imitate it. Staring at the finish, I counted down in my head. 4 minutes and 21 seconds. 4 minutes and 25 seconds. 4 minutes and 42 seconds. In the last 5 seconds, the 12 of us crossed the finish line shaken but safe. Arriving with us was another team. They were all boys. There were 25 of them. The game ends here. Well done, students. The voice over the PA finally let everyone breathe out the tension they'd been holding. Unexpectedly, after this round, only 37 people remain alive. Everyone slumped to the ground. There simply wasn't any strength left, and those who failed to reach the finish within the allotted time, that meant they would be sentenced to death. For a moment, shrieks echoed across the playground. This round of the game is now over. Current survivors, 12. The broadcast alert sounded. We all froze. Weren't there supposed to be 2 teams that cleared it? Why are we the only team being announced as having passed? Just then, I noticed that although the other team had arrived on schedule, more than half of their members were still outside the finish line. It turned out that to clear the game, the team had to cross the finish as a whole. Every member had to run past the line for it to count. As the alarm sounded, those who failed to clear the game all let out screams. One after another, bodies exploded. The playground was piled with flesh and blood, the air thick with a metallic stench of blood. The rules were simply wicked. We had thought at least half would survive. In the end, the number who lived didn't even reach a fraction of that. After such a life-and-death ordeal, No one could speak a word. After the shackles vanished, the loudspeaker did not tell us to return to our classrooms. Those bodies that had exploded also turned to smoke and dispersed. A school of over 2,000 students. Now only the final 12 of U.S. remain. A pall of death hung over the sky. No one knew how, in the remaining 2 rounds of the game, they were supposed to survive. After a brief respite, the 4th round quietly began its curtain call. This round was art from a moral, intellectual, physical, aesthetic, and labor disciplines. It means to cultivate the students' aesthetic sensibilities, to develop the ability to appreciate and create beauty. Students are requested to, within 2 hours, collaboratively complete the assigned painting. Before long, 2 enormous white sheets of paper appeared out of thin air, about 4 meters long and wide. Beside it were painting tools and a huge, transparent container. The estimated capacity was 10 liters. One of the sheets showed a standard model drawing. The content wasn't complicated, and the rule only required everyone to reach a completion rate of 50%. Among us, the only one who could draw was Sophia. She studied the painting and let out a triumphant smile. If the requirement for completion is only half, we can all survive this round. I could finish the painting in just an hour and a half. When we heard her reply, we all breathed a sigh of relief. But before long, a new problem arose. Although we had all the painting tools, the most important thing was missing: paint. On the workbench, besides the brush, there were several sharp daggers. The intention was obvious. They wanted us to use our own blood as paint. A 10-liter container. It needed to be filled with 10 liters of blood. And a normal person can lose at most 30% of their total blood volume. By that calculation, there are 12 of us in total, not counting Sophia. Each person needs to contribute about a liter of blood. But even that doesn't guarantee you'll survive after donating. If 37 people passed the previous round, we would no longer have such worries. Just as everyone didn't know what to do, a piercing scream shattered the silence. They saw that the bespectacled boy, at some unknown moment, had taken a dagger. He slit the other girl's throat. He trembled with excitement, his mind already lost. Clearly, no one wanted to risk offering their blood. By comparison, killing the others was the better choice. This single slash also completely shattered the team's peace. Everyone scrambled desperately for the dagger on the table. They wanted to kill the others to make up the numbers. Ryan had grabbed one too and was walking toward me with a knife. I was frozen with fear, stepping back until I fell. His face was full of murderous intent, his eyes unusually fierce. The next second, a girl covered in blood lunged at Ryan, but he spun and stabbed her in the chest with a single motion. She died instantly. Her body hit the ground with a thud. But the slaughter did not end. After several rounds of the game, everyone's minds were already on the verge of collapse. They raised their knives and hacked at each other. The bespectacled boy was also overpowered by 2 girls and stabbed to death with a frenzy of blades. His body was riddled like a wasp nest. His head had been cut off and thrown far away. What are you standing there for? Hurry and go with Sophia to move the bodies. I'll protect you. Ryan wiped the blood from the blade. His expression slightly softened. So it turned out he hadn't meant to hurt me. Half an hour later, of the original 12, only 4 remained. And one of the girls was the one who had killed the most, including her best friend. Huh. So good they're dead. So good they're dead. The girl laughed maniacally, lifting a knife as she walked toward us. Ryan was about to strike back. In the end, that man actually in front of us drove a knife through his own abdomen. He killed himself because the body would be removed after a certain time. Ryan and I couldn't afford to waste a single moment. Quickly moved those bodies and drained their blood to fill the containers. Although Sophia was frightened, but at the brink of life and death, she also dared not waste time. She immediately began to draw on the blank paper. We forced ourselves to endure the nausea and used a dagger to cut open the bodies. We collected as much blood as possible. After Sophia added the final stroke, the game was finally over, and that painting, painted with blood, also passed the review. By now, night had already fallen. We lay on the ground, shaking uncontrollably, retching. watching those corpses vanish into smoke. Fear had reached its peak. After 4 rounds of the games, of more than 2,000 students in the whole school, only the 3 of us remained. Why us? Sophia wept bitterly. I collapsed to the ground as well, staring at the full moon in the night sky, unable to find any relief for a long time. The once peaceful campus life has now, forever, been brought to an end. That laughter reminded me of my flowers, blooming quietly for me in every corner of my life. Music played from the loudspeaker. The harmonious melody stood in stark contrast to the scene before them. There were no flowers left to bloom here. They had long since withered. It was nearly 7 o'clock. The 3 of us sat on the bare patch of the playground, quietly awaiting notice for the final round of the game. But I no longer knew if I could hold on. Perhaps today was the day I would die. Congratulations to Ryan, Sophia, and Wendy for clearing the game. Youth set sail. The parting song not yet ended. You stood out among 1,000 students, flawlessly passing the 4-fold assessments of intellectual education, physical education, aesthetic education, and labor education. Not discouraged, not giving up. Throughout the game, the 3 of you supported one another, bringing the spirit of cooperation to full expression. Congratulations on passing the moral education, screening, and becoming outstanding graduates of this school. The announcement ended. The dismissal bell rang. Is it really over? I murmured to myself, finding it hard to deny. This final round, moral education, actually combined the games from the previous 4 rounds. If back, then we chose to persecute others in order to save our own lives. We would still be judged unqualified. Students, school is out. Please be careful on your way home. The intercom hummed once, then fell silent. The 3 of us leaned on one another and walked toward the open school gate. We mustered our courage and stepped beyond the threshold. Our bodies had not exploded. Not far away, car horns blared and voices rose in a tumult. We had returned to reality. After walking for about 10 minutes, we finally saw lights. And the campus behind them was also shrouded in black mist, gradually fading from view. Wendy, this is just a dream, right? Tomorrow we'll wake up, and everything will go back to the way it was? Sophia looked haggard, trembling uncontrollably. Ryan kept his head down and said nothing. More than 2,000 students at Qinglan High School, wiped out by a strange, uncanny force. If this really was a dream, I wished only that I would wake up quickly. In a daze, several indistinct figures ran toward us. At that moment, even my sapple began to flare up. They were dressed in police uniforms. They must be officers from the nearby Public Security Bureau. We frantically waved and called for help, running toward them. As the distance shortened, my pupils suddenly constricted. Help me. I don't want to die. One of the people in a police uniform collapsed to the ground. Above his head hovered a translucent number. It showed the countdown reaching 0. His head exploded in an instant, and the number over the other person's head was down to only about 10 seconds. They're dead. Everyone's dead. He grabbed my wrist, his face contorted. As the countdown ended, his skull exploded. Wendy, at that moment, Sophia trembled and looked toward me. More precisely, she was looking at the top of my head. I also looked up at the tops of the 2 of them. Displayed there were 999. The numbers were counting down by the second. Only then did I make out the noisy sound from afar. It was a scream that tore through the sky. Beep, beep. Qinglan City's citizen code. We ask all citizens. The end.